Hello and welcome to Critical Line Item. My name's Tom Ravlick. Thank you for joining me with this particular podcast. Now, business environments change and entities morph into different kinds of structures, and from time to time. And this has happened in recent times with a couple of accounting firms, with Gap Accountants and Nexia in Melbourne. They've merged their operations recently, and I'm fortunate enough to have one of the key partners, Vito Interlandi, who's going to take us through some of the challenges they've had in the merger process, the underlying logic behind it, and what the climate is for accounting firms today. Vito, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
An absolute pleasure. Now, before we get on to the looking at the economic environment and things that brought the merger to fruition, if you had to introduce yourself to somebody who'd never met you before, what's the Vito and the Landy elevator pitch?
Apart from being a nice guy,
Uh,
yeah.
some more detail, please. Would you
Okay.
care to
It's
expand upon that?
it's Friday, Tom. Um, oh well. Okay. So I have been in business as an advisor for over 25, probably 30 years now. Um, Started off in business services, but my initial career started off in corporate. So I've always had that interest. So we've grown from uh, my expertise would be advisory in terms of making sure that a client achieves its best potential and achieves its success. All we try to do is make sure that we can guide them on that journey the best we can and manage, of course, their tax affairs. And the team, we use a team approach to that. We try to get the best people involved in our practice that are the specialists who can best look after that particular industry or that particular need. Then also our team, I do a lot of the transactional work, which is your M&A, due diligence type work, your valuations, your independent experts reports, independent accountants reports for an IPO. Um, Basically get you ready for an IPO, get you ready for a sale. We do all that sort of work. So it's not your traditional corporate advisory. It's a mixture of both. A lot of the clients we look after, in terms of I look after, either want to grow and get their governance right and grow to a point where they can extract the value of their business, or just grow to pass it on to the next generation at the moment. And then of course next year is your full service type accounting firm. I think the only thing we just don't do is insolvency and liquidations, but we've got lots of friends that do that sort of work. So
Uh,
that's probably me in a nutshell.
when did you first start in a career in accounting? You mentioned you've been around about 30 years of.
Well, I'm probably been doing this for 40 years now. So initially I started at in corporate at Main Nicholas, and then bounced around for about 5 to 10 years until ended up in professional practice,
Okay, so
where
you
I decided that I would do my CPA, and then I did my CA.
so you've done both. You've got both qualifications, have you?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so cool.
I'm now I managed to become a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants.
Now that takes a little bit of doing, doesn't it? How many years have you been a member of the Chartered Accountants?
Well, good 35 years.
Okay, so that's a bit of a trek. Um, yeah, before we touch on the merger, the mergers are always interesting in the accounting world. Um, One of the things that I've certainly written about in other contexts and spoken to people about is the impact of COVID on the business environment over the past little while, certainly over the past 3 years. What's it been like for the practice, um, uh, in terms of keeping things ticking away while the pandemic was kicking around?
Now, we were lucky enough to be in Melbourne, which is the greatest lockdown city in the world, next to Shanghai, I think. Um, the it's been a challenge. No question about it. A lot of people were challenged by our clients. Some clients were seriously challenged by it. Their course of their businesses got altered, and have struggled to come back. And not to mention, the post-pandemic, post-COVID economic or microeconomic environment that's impacted them with supply issues and spiraling costs of doing business, labor shortages, all the rest of it. So not only did they manage to get through, but then now they're being challenged by getting through that next phase, which is the post-pandemic um, issues. Some did really well, and thanks to the federal government, who with JobKeeper and all the programs that even the state government did, supported them well, and enabled them to get through it. But you know, I think for some it'll never be the same that it was, and we just and for some their plans that they had for their business have had to adapt, and it's those businesses that adapt that are doing well. However, the latest stats I saw is insolvencies are rising, and a lot of businesses are doing it tough. Um, that statistic is at the forefront of our minds to make sure our clients are best suited and have got the right advice, and talking to their banks or looking at how they operate in particular is become important. I think tax is always important, but I think right now a lot of focus is on making sure we get through this and help our clients get through it. Like I said, some clients are doing really well, and but I think they're far and few between. Um, that's what we're seeing, and that's what we did. We stood by our clients. We stood by all our staff. I'm proud to say we did not retrench any staff. Um, we made sure our clients got access to all the support that was on offer. We made sure we accommodated them in terms of partnering with them with their cash flow shortages and struggles. And most of my team and partners found the whole experience quite exhausting, as did probably every accountant out there. You really did have to go in and support each and every one of your clients.
An interesting thing you mentioned was sort of transition and adjustment and making your way through. And the reason I asked the question about COVID, because the merger you've entered into comes at an interesting time, which is at the time when, you know, the economy would seem to be starting to get a bit of a kick along. Um, if we can segue to the merger, Vito, what drove it? Was it anything to do with sort of the climate in COVID, or were there other things that drove the sort of the courting, if you like, that led to the merger?
The courting was quite simple. Uh, uh, Doug was on the other side of a client that we were advised as independent accountant for an IPO, and we kicked off. I liked what he was doing. He liked how we did business. We got together. We spoke, and we both saw um, how the synergies could work well for not only our practice but for his. And we had recently come off. I'm one of we've Nexia's got two managing partners, myself and Paul Clements. We at our strategic plan before the merger, we as a partnership group decided that we wanted to grow and have healthy, profitable growth. And one of the ingredients of that is actually finding like-minded individuals who would like to merge in with us and come along on the journey. And Doug Abrahams and Eva Bonner at Gap fit that profile, and we just clicked it off. But every merger, there's a saying that a quick transaction is a good transaction. Definition of quick is different in everyone's mind. So it was very carefully managed over a period of time.
Define quick.
Quick in my mind would be over and done with in 3 months. Let's say we took a lot more than that, just to make sure that everyone was comfortable with way the business would work going forward.
Okay.
And that's important, because if you get that wrong, any integration that you try to do just won't work. You're dealing with people, and you're dealing with personal advice provided by one person to another group of people, which are business owners and individuals who put their trust in you. So it's not a straight cookie cutter. I'll buy that fee, thank you, and see you later. It's all about relationships. And making sure those relationships work, and more importantly is that you could work with those people that you're now in partnership with. Because that's the other factor. If you can't work with the person that you're in partnership with, it ain't going to work either.
There are stock standard things that firms do. You mentioned before in terms of business advisory to tax and other things. How does the merger bring together? What skill set does it bring together, and in what sort of critical mass does it create?
It creates a critical mass for us. To answer that question, we're not over and done with the growth story. We are open and willing to merge, acquire, or even strategically hire individuals who can contribute to that growth and the profitable growth. The critical mass was something that we wanted to achieve. Gap took us halfway down that story.
Okay.
And we're thankful for them and that, and we're very focused on making sure that their clients continue to get the best possible service. Also, Gap brings to Nexia clients that what you call professional service income clients, which are doctors and physios and medical profession, which is something that we did have, but we wanted to grow as well, and so that was a perfect fit. Doug and Eva would say that they would be highly regarded in that sector. That's not the only sector they operate in, but it is one of the main ones. So that's also something that was quite attractive. But like I said, it was more the individuals that were more important to us than just the clients. It's being able to have the confidence that they are the professionals that can deliver that service quality to their clients, and they had quality clients that were happy to get that service. So that's what an accounting practice needs to have, um, and that's what we wanted. But yeah, it helped us achieve part of our strategic plan. There's more to come.
In terms of more to come, where do you sense the growth is? Because as of today, you've got a team. You'd have a team of people with certain skills, but technologies, the tech um, styles of transactions, laws, and the business environment is changing. Where are the challenges that you see as you see them um, for the practice? Given, for example, we've got things like the digital assets and other things that are making business and then compliance somewhat more interesting.
AI,
Yeah.
the buzzword, the AI. You can don't call it digital assets. Call it what it is. It's AI. AI
Well,
is
I'm thinking Bitcoin and similar as
oh
well.
yeah. That well, Bitcoin's still developing, and there's more and more to come out. That watch that space, especially with the ATO and the rest of it.
Yes.
There'll be a very interesting thing that will evolve. We were at our national conference and we had a couple of presentations on AI and the disruptors out there, and in particular looking at how it will impact the accounting profession in the future. One thing that the keynote speaker did say was AI will still need us to interpret the results or tell it what to do, at least probably for this next decade, right? So maybe in the future it won't need it, um, but you still need the human to be able to interpret and provide the input. So if the not only us, but most firms our size are focusing more and more and more on the advisory piece rather than the compliance piece. Compliance piece still remains necessary because you've got the authorities that want it. Um, but it's about providing the value to your client in terms of the advisory piece. So if AI makes the advisory piece, the compliance piece, sorry, um, far more cost effective for our clients, that's a great result. It means that the accounting professional would have to develop their advisory skills more. So
The, the, the,
that's where the growth I think is, well, that's where the profession I think is going in the long term or short to medium term, really.
Now, with AI in mind and keeping in mind what you've just said, and being the senior partner in this new company, um, what concerns do you have about the aspects of quality control with AI as it starts to creep in? Because you you uh, there's it can be useful, but to the extent to which human oversight is necessary, and the quality of the work still needs to be assessed, appears to be just as critical.
But true, uh, data analytics or data audits will become more and more important, won't they? We
Yeah,
had that debate as well. As like you can get your doctorate by asking ChatGPT to write your thesis. All you got to give it is the right parameters, right? Can it do a tax piece? Probably could. You'd still have to review it, make sure it covered off everything. But look, it's a frontier that is growing bigger and bigger. I think it was EY announced last week or the week before that they've created a whole brand new division that will focus on AI. I mean, that's great. I'm not sure, it could have been Deloitte, but they've got a whole team that now will just focus on AI. And I think that's addressing what you're talking about, Tom. But that Deloitte, PwC, the top four can probably focus on that and find great new ways to use it. And I think as they develop that and as it develops further, a lot of people will start adopting it. But it'll be a disruptor, definitely.
Yeah.
How much so? Ask me that question in about 18 months.
That's when you'll start to see the greater emergence of use and the technical guidance from various authorities on how.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was some ridiculous number about Chat GPT has been downloaded or has got more users than in the first couple of months than Uber did in 9 months. So there was some quote like that. But so yeah, the adoption or people downloading and starting to use it is massive, and that will only mean that it will continue to develop.
I think
Hopefully, we don't get to Terminator stage with
Skynet.
Skynet.
Probably not, but we'll see how we go. The analogy I like using is iRobot with Isaac Asimov, but with Asimov's 3 rules.
Yeah, well, that didn't work well in that movie, from remembering.
No, it didn't. One of them did actually get wired up to break the actual rules. So
Yeah.
I think that's what you call it's the exception that proves the rule, right?
Yeah, but I mean, think about it. If you went to see a doctor that got his doctorate through Chat GPT, and no one knew, how cool would that be? Not for the patient though. For that individual, he's now a doctor. Hope How do you know it was his piece or someone else's piece?
Well, that's an interesting question, and one no doubt people will contemplate in terms of academic and professional integrity as we go along. Any practice that is developing, and it's probably one of the questions that is we need to cover off on. Needs new people, and the business environment and the general social environment is changing. What are the things that you consider to be important in terms of skills for new people coming into the profession in the current climate, particularly for a firm like yours?
If you break it down into grads, let's say, the first challenge for the accounting profession is the number of people doing accounting is dropping, because other professions are becoming far more trendy, let's call it, or fashionable. So for us, it would be having enough intelligence and being able to get through your degree, because the practical stuff we can teach you. But if you've got the theory and you know how to apply that theory, that will really help. I found the profession being a great place to learn the craft, as opposed to commerce. Commerce is you can get pigeonholed for quite a while, and you only see a part of it, and then it expands as you grow. So for me, it would be to have graduates who have been taught well at university, know how to what a general ledger is, or what a journal is, and how to do it. Know the difference between what is profit and capital and equity, which they should teach you in year one. And then I would say to have the patience to learn your skill and pick up some business acumen so you can become an advisor. Learn about tax. Learn about how it works with what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. That's where it's valuable for us from a grad, right? I've been impressed with some of the grads that have been coming through, which is great. Then having people who know their skill in terms of know how to read a financial statement, know how to know that what they're looking at is not quite right, and know where it could be wrong as they progress through the profession is important. I think less and less of the career person who just churns out tax returns and financial statements. I mean, AI may take that over in the long term, because it's all that compliance piece. So it's being able to have the grounding to be able to go from preparer to reviewer to advisor is what I would look for in an individual. Have they got the capability to be able to grow through those stages? And of course, the younger people are less patient, so that just means they've got to grow a little bit faster. And you've got to give them the opportunity. You do have to give them the opportunity, and I think in our firm they do get that opportunity to demonstrate how quickly they can grow and learn.
We've spoken about the sort of technical skill set and sort of experience and applying the stuff that people observe to, along with the technical skill set, to solve problems, detect problems. How much of it, how much of a role do the generic skills play, sort of critical thinking and all that sort of stuff, in your view?
They're your base,
Mm-hmm.
because if they refer to you as an advisor or an accountant, financial advisor,
Yeah.
that's the base grounding. So you need to know what you're looking at and be able to say, yeah, that's correct or not correct. But then you find there's a whole bunch of other stuff that influences the numbers that actually end up in that journal or in that P&L. And it's about getting that experience and exposure to see, what a transaction does, and then there's another piece they're learning about the psychology of managing people, for example. Right? If you buy a business, it doesn't mean that everyone's going to be happy with a new style of management, do they? I've seen that before. People, the biggest and the best people just walk out and they go, I don't want to work with that guy. So that transaction didn't go well. So yeah, there's people, there's state government regulations, there's a whole heap of exposure. Supplier relationships, supplier concentration. What does that mean when it looks at risk? You got to be able to talk to your client about, you got too much of your eggs in that particular customer. There's a risk there. So it's about identifying those things and seeing it, but the younger generation got to get exposed to that quite quickly, so they embrace it, and they seem to some embrace it better than others, but the majority seem to get it more and more, which is good to see because that means the universities are actually doing more and more, as opposed to just teaching them how to do debits and credits.
And I mean, you've been very generous with your time, Vito. Did you have any other observation about sort of where the profession sits you'd care to make before we wrap things up?
I think the profession sits quite well still, in despite AI. Uh, I think this. I think a couple of years ago there was a disruptor called, on Zero, MyOb, and all the rest of it, and everyone said that accountants become redundant. I think it was almost a decade ago. We're still here, right? We're still providing services. I think we'll still be here for a long time to come, uh, unless they abolish money, and then you don't need us, right? But I can't see that happening either. So I might, but I won't be around. So it's. I think the profession sits well. I mean, we're the whether we're doing compliance with, which is tax, audit, insolvency, whether we're doing advisory pieces in terms of, the due diligence work, and there's many professionals there, or anything that deals with finance or value or money. It seems to be the sphere where the accounting profession sort of like it has evolved and grown into. So from that respect, I think the profession sits well.
And that's a convenient note to wrap things up, Vito. If people want to know more about the firm and what
Yep.
it does and its hard, where do they find you?
Just Google Nexia Australia or Nexia, and we should pop up.
Is it
And we're getting a whole brand new, good looking website very soon. So
a whole brand new, good-looking website very
yeah,
soon?
yeah,
And
very soon.
as Adam Bant says, Google it.
Google it. No, Nexia.com.au or Nexia Australia, and you'll see our website, which has got offices in every state apart from Tasmania.
You don't do overseas.
We want to do. We would love to
Tasmania.
do Tasmania as well. Anyone in Tasmania, most welcome. Um,
But,
but yes,
that's been great chatting to you, Beto. Thank you so much for your time. Hope we can do it again.
pleasure. No worries, Tom. Have a great weekend.